In the cold, unforgiving corridors of Mercy General Hospital, silence was a weapon, and weakness was a target. To the smug residents and the self-important chief of trauma, Emily Carter was nothing more than the middle-aged nurse with a noticeable limp and a stack of orthopedic shoes. They mocked her uneven stride. They whispered about her quiet demeanor. They tried to push her out, but they didn't know. The leg she dragged wasn't broken from a fall, a car crash, or clumsiness. It was shattered in a war zone while she was saving lives that most wouldn't even dare to touch. And they were about to learn that true heroes leave no room for doubt. In the sterile hum of Mercy General Hospital, every step echoed like a verdict. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, washing the corridors in a cold, almost unforgiving white. Nurses moved briskly between rooms, and the occasional monitor beep punctuated the silence, like distant gunfire in a war zone. Emily Carter, middle-aged and battle-worn, maneuvered her cart down the hall with a deliberate, slow gait. Every click of her orthopedic shoes against the tile drew eyes, and she didn't bother hiding the slight grimace as her injured leg bore her weight. To most, it was a limp, a flaw, a sign of weakness. But Emily had a secret. The residents whispered behind her back. "Watch her hobble. Think she can keep up?" One snickered, barely holding back a laugh. "She's ancient," another muttered. "Middle-aged, slow, and probably past her prime." Even the chief of trauma, Dr. Alan Broderick, a man known for his sharp tongue and ambition, watched from the nurse's station. He tapped his pen against a clipboard with a smirk. "Why does she even still work here? Everyone else moves with purpose." Emily didn't respond. Silence was her armor. She had learned long ago that words could be twisted, laughter could be weaponized, and pity could be lethal. In the field, where bullets and shrapnel dictated life or death, silence was a gift, not a handicap. She stopped at room 312, where a young trauma patient groaned, and 4 lines snaking into his arm. Emily approached with steady hands, her presence commanding calm even before she spoke. "We need to stabilize him. Blood pressure's dropping," she instructed, her voice soft but precise. The residents crowded the doorway, trying to assert authority. "I can handle it," one insisted, stepping forward. Emily ignored him. She had no time for ego. With practiced efficiency, she checked vitals, adjusted monitors, and issued instructions that the team followed, grudgingly at first, then with mounting respect. She moved like a conductor guiding a symphony, every motion deliberate, every decision critical. Minutes passed, but the whispering never ceased. "She's too slow. Just look at that limp." Dr. Broderick leaned against the counter, shaking his head. "Honestly, if I were in charge, she'd be reassigned. Too many mistakes in the past." Mistakes. The word hung in the air like a cloud of doubt. But Emily knew the truth. Every mistake he imagined, every stumble he assumed, had a backstory etched in pain, courage, and survival. Her limp was not from a car crash or a simple accident. It was from Kandahar, a valley where explosions painted the sky in fire and smoke, where she had crawled through rubble to save soldiers she didn't even know, carrying lives to safety, while her own shattered leg screamed in protest. Every bone broken, every tendon torn, every step labored now was a badge of honor the arrogant couldn't comprehend. She finished with the patient, stabilizing him enough for surgery. The residents murmured their disbelief, barely hiding the realization that she had outperformed them. One even dared to ask, How did you do that so fast?" Emily simply nodded, offering no explanation. Silence. That evening, the hospital seemed even colder. Emily wheeled her cart toward the supply closet, every step a reminder of her difference. Her solitude. She passed the nurse's station, and Dr. Broderick's eyes followed her. There was irritation in his gaze, yes, but there was also a hint of something else. Recognition, perhaps. Then the emergency alarm blared. A trauma alert. Emily's ears perked up. Her body, though burdened with a limp, responded with the swiftness of someone who had run toward danger countless times. She moved toward the ER doors, the residents trailing behind, clumsily trying to catch up. Inside, the scene was chaos. A young man had been in a multi-car collision, his injuries severe and life-threatening. The ER staff scrambled. Machines beeped erratically. Doctors barked orders. And in the middle of it all, Emily stepped forward, her calm a stark contrast to the whirlwind. "Airway first," she said, commanding attention without raising her voice. "We need a chest tube now, and get me 2 units of O-negative." The residents hesitated. Her limp, her quiet demeanor, they underestimated her. And almost immediately that hesitation cost precious seconds. Emily's eyes narrowed. Seconds were lives. As she worked, guiding hands, correcting mistakes, her presence was magnetic. The staff began to follow her lead without question. Even Dr. Broderick's smirk faded into a tight line. Unseen by most, she adjusted 4S, stabilized the patient's vitals, and orchestrated a plan that would save him. Every motion calculated, every instruction precise. And all the while, the whispers continued. But this time, they weren't mocking. They were starting to wonder. The emergency room was a battlefield. Machines beeped frantically, alarms screamed over the metallic clang of stretcher wheels, and the smell of antiseptic mixed with blood and sweat. Every second counted. And yet, in the center of this storm, Emily Carter moved with a strange, almost eerie calm. Dr. Broderick hovered at the edge of the scene, arms crossed, brow furrowed. "Carter," he barked, voice dripping with authority. "Step aside. Let the residents handle this." Emily didn't flinch. Not a muscle, not a word. Her eyes scanned the room like a general reviewing troops. She didn't need permission, she didn't need approval. Lives depended on it. One of the residents, a smug 20-something named Tyler, took a step forward. "We've got this. Maybe you should—" Emily's glance froze him in place. It wasn't anger, it was precision, a silent command. Tyler stumbled backward, swallowed by the sudden weight of the room's urgency. The patient's vitals were crashing. His blood pressure plummeted. Oxygen levels dipped. Nurses scrambled for 4 bags and monitors. Emily barked soft, exact instructions, her voice slicing through the chaos. 2 liters of saline. Now, prep the crash cart. Chest tubes ready. Anesthetize him first. Tyler, clamp that line before you flush it." Tyler's face flushed. I didn't do it." Emily cut him off, her tone sharp but calm. Every word a surgical strike. The residents were flustered. The chief, seething, took a step closer. "You don't get to run this room, Carter. I'm in charge here." Emily met his gaze, silent. But the silence was deafening. It carried the weight of Kandahar, the years of missions, the countless lives she had carried on her back through fire and rubble. In that silence, she didn't ask for respect. She commanded it. The patient's condition worsened. A resident tried to intubate him, fumbling with the tube. Emily moved in, gently correcting his hand placement, adjusting the angle. Seconds later, the tube was in, oxygen stabilized. Dr. Broderick's smirk had vanished. He stepped back, muttering under his breath. How is she?" Emily continued to orchestrate. She knew the staff doubted her. They saw the limp, the quiet demeanor, the age, but none of them knew what she had survived. Every precise motion, every calculated instruction, was the product of battlefields far harsher than any hospital could ever be. Then the chaos escalated. A second trauma alert blared. A car had flipped outside, victims scattered across the pavement. The ER staff groaned, but Emily's eyes sharpened. "We're not waiting. Grab the gurneys. Split the team. I'll triage." The residents panicked. 2 young nurses argued about who should go where. Emily moved between them, silent but commanding. Within seconds, she had assigned tasks, prioritized care, and stabilized another patient. Her limp never slowing her, her focus never wavering. A particularly arrogant resident, Marcus, scoffed. "We've been trained for this. You're just a nurse with a limp." Emily's eyes locked on him. Still silent. She didn't need to argue. The patient she had just stabilized groaned, vital signs rising, and the staff turned to her instinctively. Marcus's scoff faltered. Time stretched. Another patient came in, this one critical. Emily's instructions were precise, almost surgical. She corrected mistakes silently, anticipated complications before they happened, and saved a life that had seconds left. Dr. Broderick finally exploded. "Enough, Carter. Step aside or I swear." A loud alarm cut him off. The monitor of the first patient flatlined. Without hesitation, Emily sprang into action. She grabbed the defibrillator paddles, placed them on the patient's chest, and pressed with exact timing. 1 shock, 2 shocks, then a faint pulse returned. The room fell silent. Even Broderick froze. He had never seen such efficiency, such calm in absolute chaos. Emily's limp carried her from patient to patient. each step deliberate, each command measured. She was everywhere and nowhere at once, a ghost in the halls of the ER, moving with purpose only she understood. Then a young resident whispered, barely audible, She's like a seal or something." Emily didn't respond. She didn't need to. Every life she saved spoke louder than words. The staff started to notice the pattern. Mistakes were corrected before they became disasters. Hesitations evaporated in her presence, and slowly grudging respect began to replace ridicule. The limp, the quiet demeanor, the middle-aged exterior, it all became irrelevant. Only her competence mattered. And yet, Dr. Broderick still simmered. Authority had been challenged, his ego bruised. But even he couldn't ignore the truth. Emily Carter was the calm in the storm, the strategist, the hero no one had expected. Outside the ER doors, the world continued in its chaos. But inside, Emily had transformed the room. The residents were learning, the nurses were following, and the patients were alive. She hadn't said a word, she hadn't demanded recognition, but the silent authority she carried was undeniable. And somewhere, deep down, the arrogance of the hospital's hierarchy realized underestimating her had been the first mistake of the day. The ER had never felt smaller. Every heartbeat echoed like a drum, every alarm a countdown. Emily moved like a shadow, her limp forgotten as adrenaline sharpened her focus. Patients screamed, monitors screamed, but she was in control, every move precise, every instruction exact. Then it happened. The trauma bay doors burst open. A high-profile patient arrived, gunshot wounds, bleeding profusely, critical. The attending staff froze. The chief of trauma, Dr. Broderick, barked orders, but panic had already taken root. The patient was losing too much blood. Every second mattered. "Where's Carter?" a young nurse whispered, eyes wide. "She's right here," someone replied, pointing. Emily's eyes scanned the patient. Assessment was instant. Airway secured, 4 lines in, hemorrhage controlled. But the real challenge wasn't just the patient. It was the chaos, the doubters, the staff who were waiting for her to fail. 2 units now," Emily commanded, pointing to the transfusion setup. "Prep 4 or backup. We don't have time." Tyler, the cocky resident from before, tried to intervene. "I've got this, Carter. Step aside." Emily's glance froze him. No words, just that look. Tyler stepped back, swallowing his pride. In that moment, the room seemed to exhale, aware that she was the one to trust when seconds meant life or death. Then came the complication. The patient went into cardiac arrest mid-air. Everyone panicked. Dr. Broderick barked, "Code blue, move." Emily was already there. She placed the paddles, checked the rhythm. "Clear," she called, pressing the shock with flawless timing. 1, 2, 3 shocks. Then faintly a pulse returned. The room was silent. Even Broderick's jaw tightened. Emily turned to assess again, noticing internal bleeding that no one else had caught. She grabbed the portable ultrasound, checking vital organs. "Pericardial tamponade," she muttered under her breath. Then louder, "Prep for immediate pericardiocentesis. Sterile kit now." The residents fumbled. Emily grabbed the kit herself, guided the procedure with hands steady as steel. The needle pierced precisely, fluid drained, pressure relieved, the patient stabilized. Breath caught, eyes wide, whispers filled the room. The arrogance, the mockery, the doubt, all dissolved in the face of undeniable skill. But the final test wasn't over. Another trauma alert, this one a multi-car pileup, victims scattered, critical injuries everywhere. Emily's team was exhausted, but she moved with renewed purpose. "Divide and conquer," she instructed, assigning roles, triaging instantly. Every patient she touched survived another moment. Every decision she made saved lives. Then Marcus, the arrogant resident, whispered, How does she do it?" Emily didn't answer. She didn't need to. Action spoke louder than words. And that's when the door opened. A man in a military uniform entered, crisp, commanding, the kind of presence that silenced a room instantly. A SEAL captain. He didn't speak. He walked straight to Emily. Every eye followed him. Whispers grew. Who is he? Why is he here? He stopped in front of her. Without hesitation, he snapped a crisp salute. Emily froze for just a second. Then slowly she returned it. The room went dead silent. Even the alarm seemed to pause. The residents gawked. The nurses stopped mid-task. "Doctor," Broderick's face turned red. Shock, disbelief, maybe even envy. The SEAL captain nodded at her. No words, just recognition. The kind that comes only after witnessing courage under fire, skill under pressure, heroism in the rawest form. The message was clear. Emily Carter wasn't just a nurse with a limp, she was a soldier, a protector, a silent hero who had faced horrors most couldn't imagine. And now, in front of everyone, her past had returned to validate her present. The staff slowly realized the weight of what had happened. Every life saved, every command followed, every crisis averted. It wasn't luck. It was training, experience, courage forged in war. Dr. Broderick stepped back, struggling to regain composure. She actually saved them all, he muttered under his breath. The SEAL captain turned and left as quietly as he had arrived. But the impact lingered. Emily's silence had spoken volumes. Her limp no longer defined her. Her quiet demeanor no longer diminished her. And in the aftermath, as the ER returned to its frantic rhythm, one thing was certain. No one would ever doubt her again. Emily Carter had shown them all. True heroism isn't loud. It doesn't demand applause. It doesn't need permission. It only needs courage, precision, and the willingness to act when others freeze. The chaos of the ER slowly ebbed. Monitors beeped steadily. The last critical patient stabilized. The fluorescent lights reflected off the polished floors, casting long shadows that mirrored the tension that had gripped Mercy General for hours. Emily leaned against the counter, catching her breath, her limp more noticeable now. But it didn't matter. She was alive, her patients were alive, and the room now vibrated with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Tyler, the young resident who had once mocked her every step, approached cautiously. His usual arrogance replaced by hesitance. "Carter, I just," he stammered, words failing him. Emily gave a small nod, nothing more. No lecture, no boasting. Her eyes said it all. Experience and courage spoke louder than words ever could. Nearby, a nurse whispered to another, "Did you see that? She didn't just save lives, she owned that ER today." Even Dr. Broderick, the once imperious chief of trauma, couldn't mask his astonishment. He had spent years building a reputation of authority and control, yet here was Emily, a nurse with a limp and quiet manner, commanding respect in a way that no title ever could. Broderick finally cleared his throat. "Carter," he said, voice tight with emotion he tried to hide, "your performance today was remarkable." Emily glanced at him, nodding briefly. That was all. Her humility was her shield, her silence a statement. She didn't need accolades. The lives saved were her reward. Word spread quickly through the hospital. Staff who had once laughed at her limping gait, whispered about her quiet demeanor, or doubted her competence, now approached her with newfound respect. "Emily, that was incredible," one nurse said, tears in her eyes. You saved them all." Emily offered a small, tired smile. "We all did our part," she said softly, deflecting the praise. But deep down, she felt a quiet pride swelling in her chest. Later, in the break room, the SEAL captain's earlier salute lingered in her mind. He had recognized something the others hadn't, a courage that was forged in war, tested in chaos, and proven in moments of truth. That acknowledgement, silent but profound, meant more than any ceremony or medal ever could. She sat quietly, taking a sip of lukewarm coffee. Around her, the staff moved with a mix of reverence and curiosity, as if watching a legend in motion. A young intern, barely out of med school, finally gathered the courage to ask, "Emily, what happened to your leg?" Emily's eyes softened. Memories of Kandahar flashed briefly, a night of fire, screams, and the unbearable weight of responsibility. She didn't flinch. She didn't need to. "It was broken in the line of duty," she said simply. "But it doesn't stop me from doing my job." Silence fell. The intern nodded, eyes wide. Respect, awe, and understanding filled the room. Emily's story wasn't just about a physical injury. It was about courage, resilience, and a commitment to life, even when the world underestimated you. Later that evening, as the ER quieted, Emily walked through the halls one last time. Staff paused, offering smiles, nods, even quiet words of thanks. For once, her silence was met with understanding, her humility with admiration. In the corner, Dr. Broderick watched her go. A mixture of regret and newfound respect etched into his face. Authority, he realized, wasn't about barking orders or asserting dominance. True authority came from skill, courage, and the ability to act when it mattered most. Emily left the hospital that night with the same quiet dignity she had always carried. The limp was still there, the orthopedic shoes still weighed her down, but none of that mattered. She had proven that heroism doesn't announce itself. It commands respect quietly, profoundly, and irrevocably. Outside, the city lights reflected off wet streets. A cool breeze reminded her of the battlefield she once knew, the chaos she had endured, and the lives she had saved. She paused, inhaled deeply, and allowed herself a rare moment of satisfaction. The world might never know the full extent of her sacrifices. But inside Mercy General, silence was no longer a liability. It was a badge of honor, and Emily Carter, the nurse who had once been mocked, was now the unspoken hero of the hospital. Her story would ripple through the corridors for months to come. Staff would tell it quietly to new interns, whisper it in awe to colleagues, and never again doubt that courage comes in many forms. And sometimes, the quietest voice speaks the loudest. The night had settled over Mercy General Hospital, leaving behind the hum of machines and the faint scent of antiseptic. The ER, once a battleground of chaos and tension, now breathed in quiet relief. Outside, the city lights shimmered against the rain-slick streets, a mirror to the calm that had finally settled inside. Emily Carter walked slowly down the hallway, her limp still pronounced, her orthopedic shoes clicking softly against the polished floor. But tonight, each step felt lighter. She had faced ridicule, doubt, and the subtle cruelty of arrogance, and emerged not only unbroken but stronger. In the staff lounge, nurses and residents huddled in small clusters, exchanging whispered praise and astonishment. Emily had changed something in their hearts. The memory of her calm decisiveness in moments of life or death crisis would linger for years. A young nurse, barely more than a trainee, approached her hesitantly. "Emily, I just want to say thank you for showing us what courage really looks like." Emily smiled, quiet but warm. "Courage isn't always loud," she said. "Sometimes it's the decisions you make when nobody's watching. Sometimes it's showing up when the world doubts you." Her words were simple, yet they carried weight. In the silence of the hospital corridors, they resonated. The lesson was clear. Heroism isn't about recognition. It's about action, integrity, and the willingness to risk everything for others. Even Dr. Broderick, the chief of trauma who had once embodied arrogance, now looked at her with genuine respect. Authority had its place, but Emily had taught the hospital a more profound lesson, that real leadership is measured by courage, compassion, and competence, not by titles or egos. Later, as the last of the night shift prepared to leave, the SEAL captain's salute replayed in Emily's mind. That quiet nod of acknowledgement, given without fanfare, had said more than 1,000 words ever could. She had earned respect not through confrontation, but through unwavering dedication and bravery, and it wasn't just her courage that left an impact, it was the way she carried it, the humility, the silence, the strength behind every measured step. That was what made her a hero. Emily paused by the hospital exit, taking a moment to look back. The building glowed under the city lights, a monument to the countless lives saved within its walls. She inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of the day, the weight of the past, and the satisfaction of a job well done. To anyone watching this story, the message is simple but powerful. Don't underestimate the quiet ones. Don't mock the ones who seem slow, small, or unassuming. True heroism often hides behind humility, perseverance, and scars that tell stories words never can. The world will throw doubt in your path. People will whisper, mock, or push you aside. But real strength isn't about proving them wrong. It's about showing up when it counts, acting with integrity, and letting your actions speak louder than words. As Emily walked into the night, her limp was a reminder, not of weakness, but of survival, courage, and dedication. She had faced ridicule, fought chaos, and saved lives in ways few could imagine. And she had done it all silently, leaving a legacy that no one could take away. If Emily's story inspired you, take a moment to reflect on the quiet heroes in your own life, whether it's a nurse, a teacher, a soldier, or a friend. They might not seek recognition, but their courage changes lives every single day. Like this video, if Emily's silent heroism moved you, subscribe for more stories of courage, resilience, and shocking triumphs you won't see anywhere else. Comment below, who's the unsung hero in your life that deserves recognition? Remember, sometimes the loudest voice in the room isn't the one that commands attention, it's the one that quietly saves the day.